A very good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at this webinar for the launch of the ex-post evaluation report of the Adaptation Fund project on Climate Change Adaptation Programme in Water and Agriculture in Anseba Region in Eritrea. My name is Vlad Arnaudov, and I'm going to be the moderator of this event. This is a 1-hour event organized by the Technical Evaluation Reference Group of the Adaptation Fund, and we are going to have a very interesting and exciting agenda today, where you'll be able to learn about the work that we did on ex-post in Eritrea this time, and also there'll be a very lively panel discussion that we'll have towards the end. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to ask your questions to the panelists. The event will start with opening remarks by the head of the Adaptation Fund, Mr. Mikko Ollikainen. After his remarks, we'll have presentation by two extremely interesting presenters, Ms. Suzanne Legros, who is a member of the AF-TERG, and also Ms. Rennie Jordan, who is part of the evaluation team of Universalia, who conducted actually this evaluation. After the presentation, we'll also have some remarks from the Ministry of Land, Water and Environment and Department of Agriculture and Land by Mr. Gebre Meskel Tevolde, and also from our colleagues in UNDP who were the implementing entity. I would like to maybe invite the representative of the government to say a few words, and then I'll give the floor to Mikko as well, and then we'll move into the presentation.
But I would like to extend my gratitude to you and the technical evaluation group for coming up with this evaluation report, which is really, as we always say, this was a learning process for us to understand how the performance has been going after the implementation of the project, and it had also shown that I think some of the evaluation were maybe beyond our expectation, but it gives us, you know, a very good indication how this Anseba project was, you know, mainstreamed into the local communities. So based on the plan where we had to implement the project, I think the exit strategy was great, because they were able to continue without waiting for any other additional, you know, assistance. So that gives us, you know, a good lesson for us, you know, to think for other for coming projects, and we are. I mean, we have already identified that this project has to be replicated, because it gives us, you know, a good lesson. So maybe shortly we will announce that we'll have another similar projects around the area, but this evaluation report that we have gone through with received is really very interesting, and I appreciate it. So I would like to thank all who have been involved in this evaluation. I think they did without any reservation. We have been able to identify our weakness and the strengths. So we'll keep our strengths on and we'll try to you know to fix the maybe the small weakness that we have observed from the report. I think this is what I can say. So then I would like also to thank the UNDP office here, led by Mr. Palanin, Nashida, Adami, and Jordanis, for their relentless effort in making sure this event happen. Not only this, but also the whole process that we have been going through since its implementation and then the post in terms of following up the project. So thank you for that opportunity as well, Vlad, because you have done a lot of job, in making this project, the ex-post evaluation happen. We remember from the very beginning that we had, several conservations, and then thank you for that. Anyway, I think I have to stop here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kibrom, for the remarks on your side and for the very kind words of appreciation that you shared. I really happy to hear that. So, colleagues, if you don't mind, I would like now to give the floor to the head of the Adaptation Fund, Mr. Mikko Likainen, for opening remarks on his side as well. So, Mikko, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vlad. And thank you, Mr. Kibrom, and the Eritrean government also for the opening remarks. Also on behalf of the Adaptation Fund, it's my pleasure to invite you all to this webinar on the ex-post evaluation of the project in Eritrea called Climate Change Adaptation Programme in Water and Agriculture in Anseba Region, Eritrea. So as Vlad has mentioned, this project was financed by the Adaptation Fund and implemented by the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, and executed by the Ministry of Land, Water and Environment of Eritrea and the Department of Agriculture and Land of Zoba and Siba administration. This project ended already more than 7 years ago in 2018. The purpose of ex-post evaluations in the context of the Adaptation Fund is to observe projects several years after their end and gather lessons learned on the results of the project. The benefit of doing the evaluation some years after the project has ended is to be able to assess what factors may support the sustainability of projects and what opportunities there might be for scaling up. And I'm very happy to hear from the government of Eritrea that there are already plans of continuing with other projects. So such evaluations are very important for us to give us information and to help design new adaptation projects. As we know, we are unfortunately in a situation where globally resources for adaptation are not adequate for covering all needs. And we certainly would like to avoid wasting resources, if you will, to something that has been turned out not to work. So all knowledge that we can muster on what works and what doesn't work in practical adaptation projects on the ground is extremely valuable. And therefore, these types of ex-post evaluations are very helpful. Eritrea is a country that is very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Located in the Horn of Africa, it's one of the most climate-sensitive regions globally, and one of the regions and countries that the Adaptation Fund supports. Much of the country is arid and semi-arid with highly variable rainfall, and climate change is expected to increase the frequency and severity of droughts and rainfall unpredictability. So we're quite excited about the findings of this ex-post evaluation, including ones that are related to the original intended goals that the project had on increased food security through improvements in agricultural production. But I know the evaluation also looked at some of the unintended consequences of the project, and it will be very interesting to hear about them from the evaluation team and others. Since we only have 1 hour for this event, I will stop here and wish you all a very good webinar. And thank you again very much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mikko, for your opening remarks and welcoming the participants to this event. So without any further ado, I would like to move to the next part of our session today, the presentation on the ex-post evaluation. And I want to give the floor to the evaluation team, Ms. Renee Jordan, as well as to my colleague, Susan Legros, member of the AF-TERG. So colleagues, over to you.
Thank you very much. Maybe the first slide. Okay, Vlad, are you going to... essentially today will be, we've had the welcome, and I'd really like to thank everyone for joining us today. We'll talk a little bit about which project outcomes were sustained and why, and how the project contributed to resilience. And then also talk a little bit about lessons and reflections. And then, of course, we have an opportunity to answer some of your questions. In addition to having Rennie here today, I want to mention that also Esther Rullo, who was one of the evaluators on the team, is also here in the call. So we're very fortunate. We have her available for questions and additional insight. I think Mikko did a terrific job of summing this up, why we're here. We are here really to raise awareness about ex-post work in general. And for that reason, we'd really like to thank the government and UNDP to opening the session to some other ex-post evaluation teams. We're here to share insights on the outcomes in Eritrea and to highlight some lessons for sustaining and scaling resilience. And then, of course, to support the board, the secretariat, and the implementing entities in decision-making. I want to emphasize that this is an optional exercise for countries. And so we cannot do this work and inform the fund without the active participation and support of governments and implementing entities. And so once again, I'd like to thank both the government of Eritrea and UNDP for their support throughout this process. Next slide. Okay, this is just a very basic diagram about why we go back. Adaptation, ex-post evaluations started as a request from the Adaptation Fund board about what happened after project closure. And as you can see, the timing of adaptation and resilience does not always go on the timeline of a project cycle. So frequently, for example, you'll have a project start, 5 years later, the project ends, we have our standard terminal evaluation, and we make an estimate of how likely we think the project is to be sustained. But we don't actually know unless we go back. And in this case, we went back in year 7, but it's not to say you can't go back again. But as you say, it can take many years for impacts to really develop and for us to know what is going on. And that's why the ex-post evaluations are so valuable to us. And I'll give the floor to, I think, Rennie now.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Susan, and thanks to others for the introductory remarks. I think we've spoken a little bit about the kind of overall project context, and I'll maybe just highlight again here the broad objective was to increase community resilience and adaptive capacity to climate change through an integrated water management and agricultural development approach. And there were 4 kind of key outcomes that were part of this project, and I'll maybe just touch on these outcomes as well as sort of broadly what their ultimate sort of rating was at the final evaluation. So the first outcome was on increasing water availability and erosion control through groundwater recharge, rainwater harvesting, and irrigation and soil water conservation measures. And at final evaluation, this outcome was rated satisfactory. Pretty much all the planned activities had been implemented and water availability was assessed to have increased. In terms of outcome 2, focusing on enhancing climate and resilient agricultural and livestock production, this was found to be actually highly satisfactory at final evaluation. And I'll just note here the kind of addition of new activities as part of this outcome that weren't maybe originally intended. One of these was the integration of a minimum integrated household agricultural package, also called the MIHAP. You'll see that referenced a little bit more throughout the evaluation, but this was essentially a package where seeds, fruit trees, chicks, a cow, like different sort of livelihood diversification components were provided to households, including a pass-on model for the cows, and also the integration of a project component on solar lighting. So overall, this was the outcome that was seen as rated kind of highly satisfactory at project closure. And then we had a focus on improving climate risk information and monitoring and using this to raise awareness and enhance community preparedness to climate hazards. At project closure, at project final evaluation, this was rated marginally satisfactory, noted for the construction creation of meteorological stations, with maybe a bit of a limitation on capitalizing on existing traditional climate forecasting knowledge. related to that. And then finally, there was an outcome related to establishing a knowledge management system and implementing different knowledge management activities. And this was similarly rated marginally satisfactory at final evaluations. So that's just a bit of context on sort of the baseline that we were starting with, looking at the ex post evaluation. And just to note that the project targeted smallholder farmers, agropastoralists, and rural women. And I'll maybe just go to the next slide. So I'll just speak a little bit to the sort of data collection methods that we had for the evaluation. One, of course, was document review, focusing on project design, monitoring, and evaluation documents, as well as documents that were made available kind of after the closure of the project related to any reporting on project activities. Of course, there was a week-long field visit in Eritrea. There were interviews and focus group discussions carried out with 96 stakeholders. Approximately a quarter of the stakeholders consulted were women, and just over 2/3 were project beneficiaries. In terms of project site visits, the team was able to visit 8 project sites, providing insight into different project activities and outputs with transect walks and direct observation, kind of key approaches that were used. And just to note that the evaluation was carried out last year between March and November. And next slide, please. So I'll speak a little bit to some of the outcomes, some of what was sustained, and different factors. So this slide provides kind of a snapshot of the sustainability ratings from the 2018 final evaluation through to the 2025 ex post. You'll see that there weren't individual outcome level sustainability estimates at the final evaluation, but overall the project sustainability rating was moderately likely. And then shifting to now to 2025, and we'll get into this a little bit more in the next slides, but you see that 3 out of the 4 outcomes were rated moderately satisfactory, and we had 1 outcome which was rated satisfactory at closure. And then on the right-hand side, we see 4 different kind of key sustainability factors that were considered throughout the evaluation: ownership, capacities, partnerships, and resources. And you can see the legend at the bottom. Most of these were rated moderately sufficient across the different outcomes, with a few deviations where we see related to outcome 2, ownership, capacities, and partnerships being rated sufficient, and then 1 sort of insufficient rating on resources related to outcome 3. And we'll shift to the next slide, please. So this is just a bit of an overview of sort of some of the key takeaways on 3 of the 4 outcomes. So I'll just start with outcome 1. We saw, overall sustained improvements in water access and soil quality that did support agricultural and household needs. So supporting water for irrigation, for hygiene, and for livestock. And this was observed in 5 consulted project sites. We also saw that, nearly year-round gardening was enabled in at least one of the villages. And we saw, reduced soil salinity and widespread terracing, which was reported to have contributed to improved fertility and reduced soil erosion, which, does remain a challenge, but we saw improvements there. And one thing to note in terms of sort of risks to sustainability that came up as maintenance and kind of functionality issues. And this is particularly maybe a risk in the dry season, but we saw that the most widespread issue related to water infrastructure was dam siltation. And then some more specific examples, which included things like the need to replace the defective part in a solar irrigation pump, as well as infrastructure damage due to flash flooding. Those are more kind of quite specific examples, whereas the siltation was more widespread. Now, looking at outcome 2, focusing on climate resilient agriculture, we did find kind of sustained shifts towards diversified climate resilient agriculture and livestock production, improved agriculture inputs, and changes in livelihoods. And one of the examples here is the expansion of the program that I mentioned before, the MEHAP program, which we did see actually expand outside of the subzobas from the original 2 to 7 subzobas. We also saw continued use of kind of improved drought-resistant seeds, as well as ongoing kind of development and testing of new varieties through institutional partners. Also supported by MIHAP, we saw agricultural diversification, which was reported to be impacting diets, so enhancing dietary diversification, consumption of fruits, vegetables, meat, eggs, and milk, for example, and also a general kind of shift in kind of livelihood from pastoralism to agropastoralism. And one thing to note here is that, water access and soil improvements, which were a strong component of the first outcome area, were key enablers to sustained agricultural productivity. So there were sort of links between outcome 1 and outcome 2 in that regard. And then finally, just touching on knowledge sharing, we did see that knowledge sharing actually was sort of enhanced and continued at multiple levels. So this was through extension agents, through farmer field days and communities, farmers sharing knowledge and kind of peer learning. And in one case, a presentation on the MIHAP program supported replication of this program to other sub-ZOBAs. But at the same time, there were some untapped opportunities for still having that kind of more systematic knowledge management agenda. So capturing and sharing lessons with other ZOBAs through an integrated platform, or capturing and sharing lessons just kind of about the project more broadly. And we'll just shift to the next slide. So thinking back to the sort of broad overview slide that was shared before, this touches a little bit on each of those kind of key factors of sustainability. Starting with stakeholder ownership, we did see that stakeholder ownership was quite widespread and multi-level, from national government through sub-ZOBA, all the way down to the village level. We saw project activity specifically aligned to different national policy priorities as well as regional priorities. For example, with the MIHAP being kind of quite an important aspect of kind of agricultural development and livelihood. And we did see community contributions being important for sustaining results, as well as, in kind of specific cases, an opportunity for more community input, which could have potentially increased ownership. Now, looking at capacities, we did see kind of overall technical capacities being quite reasonably strong in different areas, such as dam repair, soil and water conservation, and agricultural knowledge transfer, with, again, maybe some concerns or limitations related to capacities for sustaining different water infrastructures. And we didn't go into this in the previous slide, but also related to hydromet services and knowledge management. In terms of partnerships, we did see multi-level partnerships across the 4 outcomes, which have contributed to sustaining them. Again, from kind of national and regional governments to local authorities through to community members. And one kind of key example of this was different institutions working closely together to generate and kind of disseminate knowledge on climate resilient agricultural practices and drought-resistant seeding. So all the way from the development of new varieties of drought-resistant seeds through to kind of the dissemination by extension agents. And then finally, just on resources, we noted that this is one of several projects on this topic in Eritrea, so covering climate change, food insecurity, livelihoods, and natural resource management. Some examples of replication or scaling, for example, the MIHAP component of the programming. And then finally, also some examples of continued government support after the project closed, which did in some cases support the sustainability of outcomes, again, with sort of variability across project sites and specific needs. And I will pass it to Susan to take us through.
Great. Thank you, Rennie. Great. So while I was introduced, I do want to explain my role in this evaluation, because I was fortunate enough to travel with the evaluation team for the field visit, but I did not serve as an evaluator. That said, I had many opportunities to observe and participate in the field visits, so I have a lot of observations. When we say resilience, and this is how did the project contribute to resilience, what the TERG has in mind is really the ability of natural and human systems to cope with climate threats. We look at the climate threats, whether they're slow onset or whether they are shocks like drought, And then we look at the ability of both the human systems and the natural systems to kind of anticipate these threats and respond to them and recover from them. So in fact, the cows in this photo are evidence of resilience in the project 7 years following closure, and I will say something about that in a moment. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of looking at the evidence for resilience, there were several issues that we considered. One was whether there were conditions in place to kind of increase resilience. And we wanted to know whether the changes could be large enough and significant enough to have an effect to really maintain resilience. And here we found some really interesting things. For example, in the area of environmental change, we knew that there had been some siltation in the dams, but what we found in talking to communities is that the reservoirs had still increased the groundwater table. And with a higher groundwater table, that led to improved access to water resources and reduced time for water collection. So this was something that was, say, a positive, and because of the larger access to water. We also heard evidence of reduced soil salinity, and that also could have a broad effect on agricultural productivity in the region. Another thing that we looked at was livelihood diversification. Here, essentially, the MIHAP program, by providing cows or chicks or fruit trees, provided both livelihood diversification and dietary diversification. And we saw some evidence of scaling. And then in addition, in terms of sort of the size needed to maintain a resilient system, we saw that there had been additional international resources that had been leveraged to support project-related activities. So for example, IFAD had a large project in the country that supported the expansion of MIHAP, and then funding from the African Development Bank had also promoted the construction of reservoirs. And both of those projects were able to draw on lessons that were learned from this project. Then we also saw sustained participation and leadership of women in some of these project activities and organizations. We were really able to meet with a variety of women from village committees to local government to agricultural extension, who were all involved. And I think this was quite helpful for us to learn about, because when you look at project benefits, you want to know how they're distributed. And it was interesting to see the distribution of project benefits ex post. Next slide, please. On a related note, women definitely benefited from the co-benefit of less time for fetching water, as did children. And we had reports of improved school attendance for children, also related to this increased water availability. Something that I think about with resilience is that it is kind of an ongoing story. And one of the things that the project looked at was this maintenance issue. As you can see in the lower right-hand corner, those are solar photovoltaic panels related to a water pump. When we visited, the pump was not functioning due to a broken part. And we found that there were sort of differences in understanding about the roles of supporting the ongoing maintenance and actually who would be responsible for purchasing those parts. I think it's also important to mention, and I think it was interesting for us as the TERG, is if we had gone several years before, we would not have seen a broken pump. And if we were to go in 2 years, we may see a functioning pump. So I think I just want to say that, ex post are really kind of a snapshot in time. Finally, I think it's important to mention, and what was very significant for me, were how many stakeholders were contributing to sustaining these institutional and community capacities. That's a very fancy way of saying how to keep the good parts of the project going. I think the best example of this to me was when we had lunch in one of the participating communities during the field work. We ate injera that was made from drought-resistant millet that came from drought-resistant seeds. They had been cultivated by farmers in the region. They had been developed in cooperation with Hamamalo Agricultural College. They had been supported by the work of the agricultural extension workers. And that to me was really like resilience in a single meal. So back to you, Rennie.
Thanks, Susan. So I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the sort of broader lessons and reflections that came out of the evaluation, or that we had kind of at the end of the evaluation. And one is just kind of related to the project relevance and the kind of continued relevance of the project. And we really found that kind of these outcomes on water access, erosion control, and climate resilient agriculture remain relevant, remain aligned with kind of key adaptation priorities in the country, in the region where the project was carried out, still of relevance today, something that was designed well over a decade ago. And kind of related to that, the evaluation was able to kind of provide, as Susan has described, different insights into the kind of longer term value that some of these project investments were able to have. On the design component, I think we really saw the kind of importance of ongoing maintenance and repair to be able to kind of sustain the different assets or infrastructure that is put in place by the projects. And having, you know, the plans for operation and maintenance be available to, kind of understood by, and including the kind of key stakeholders who are ultimately responsible for carrying out the maintenance. And I think related to that, having kind of these clearly defined roles and responsibilities for stakeholders at different levels, and, you know, having clarity over kind of financial resources, over spare parts in terms of availability, accessibility for operations and maintenance, and you know, plan for how to kind of mobilize those resources into the future. And then just kind of on the implementation side, the different examples have shown kind of evidence of positive community and environmental impact, with some insights on sustaining outcomes. And I think it's going to a lot more detail in the report, but you know, some of the factors that have contributed to sustaining the outcomes, some unintended outcomes, as was mentioned at the beginning, and yeah, I think one of them that's not noted here, but that has come up as a bit of a pattern throughout the presentation is the MEHAB program, and how that has kind of been integrated into other projects, how it's aligned with priorities kind of at the regional level as well, and kind of lessons for scaling of that program. Maybe shift to the next slide. So these are just three kind of broad takeaways related to sustainability, resilience, and learning. One is you know, that the expo showed that some of the benefits that the project had realized at the final, as assessed by the kind of final evaluation, are continuing years after closure, with the sustainability of these benefits sort of dependent on different factors. In terms of resilience, you know, interventions were shown to contribute to factors which could strengthen adaptive capacity. And then on learning, you know, we see that both successes and challenges inform future adaptation projects. So one of the kind of key challenges raised is related to sort of the maintenance of some of the infrastructure. Something that comes through in the report as well is, you know, what happens after certain outcomes maybe have reached their I guess sort of the end of their life cycle in terms of specific. I mean, specifically, we have an example in the report related to the solar power that was provided. But I think I'll close it there so we have an opportunity for some of the questions.
Thank you so much, Rennie, and thank you, Susan, for this very interesting and informative presentation. I really appreciate it, and I personally learned a lot also about this project and the findings from the ex-post evaluation. Before we move into the Q&A session, I wanted to give the floor again to the representatives from the government and also to UNDP colleagues if they have any quick reflections following this presentation. And in the meantime, I also want to invite all the participants in the webinar today to put their questions in the Q&A box, and we're very happy to take them. But let me give the floor back to you, our government counterparts from Eritrea, as well as the UNDP colleagues for any quick reflections.
Yes, thank you very much for this. We, as an office, UNDP, we are very happy about what we have had. This is not different from what we are also experiencing in this country. Miko had clearly outlined what the challenges of this country are. And as such, we feel that every investment that you make in Eritrea brings about a good return. So the reason I say it's not different from what we've experienced, we recently did a CPD evaluation, and the outcomes are mirroring exactly what is being reported here. With very moderate investment, you get huge outcome in terms of results, especially resilience at that level where you have female-headed households, which exist in this country. So we are very grateful about the findings. They mirror the reality on the ground and what other findings have revealed. That tells all of us that we should not, in very difficult times of resource constraints, such countries should be prioritized, because with a little bit of investment, you get a bigger outcome. And beyond that, the results affect real lives, not numbers, but real lives as the people, those who were involved in the evaluation, so in the field. So we are grateful as implementing partners, not only for the result, but for the partnership that has endured over a period of time. What we want to, maybe that would be at the next step, but my question would be, in your views, what would be the next steps moving from this point going forward, given the excellent results we've already achieved through the pilot? Thank you, and over.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your remarks, and also sharing the reflections of you as an implementing entity. That is very important to us. And also it was really nice to hear that the findings of this ex post evaluation actually align with some of the other work that you're doing at the moment, because this is very important. And it also confirms that we are actually on the right track with this work that we do, and with the generation of learning and evidence for what works and what doesn't work for projects. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. So I think without any further ado, I want to move into the Q&A session. And actually, there is already the first question that was posed. What are we actually going to do with what we found here? What are the next steps from our side? So I wanted to check, like, maybe if Susan wants to take that question.
Thank you, Vlad. I would be happy to, because it's something we've been discussing internally as a group, and I think it's something that we will discuss with the board in the upcoming meeting. And I think our goal is to make sure that what we have learned from this project can improve projects that are both under implementation and sort of in the planning stage for the fund. And so we would like to ensure that the board has information about key areas where project design can be more sustainable. For example, having clear roles and an exit strategy, as this project had, but also having very clear roles and responsibilities for maintenance. These are things that we can actually share with project development teams, and then also with the staff at the fund secretariat, the board secretariat, who are in charge of screening projects. So we have several channels where we would like to be sharing this information. It will go to good use.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. And you actually emphasized really the importance of closing the learning loop and integrating what we learned from this work in the future programming. I think this also reflects to what Mikko said in his opening remarks. Thank you for this. But now that I have you here, maybe one follow-up question. So these evaluations that we do at the moment, the ex-post evaluations, we generally do them 3 to 5 years after the project is completed. But do you think we actually have to revisit once again, later in time, based on what you have seen up to now here and in other evaluations?
Oh, I have some strong thoughts on that. I think it would be excellent to revisit. I know that, for example, the Japan International Cooperation Agency does multiple ex posts where they go, I think it's every 5 years. So I think I would recommend that. But I would also encourage others to consider conducting an ex post evaluation. And that is really, I think that was the thinking behind our ex post toolkit. So it really is to empower other organizations who are interested in finding out what happened and learning from it to undertake their own. So that was really designed as a resource, thanks to Mariana Vidal Merino, who's on this call, able to kind of codify what we learned and make it accessible to other organizations.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And just for everybody on this call, in the chat, we posted the link to the Expos 2 as well, so you can access it on our website as well. And I, again, want to encourage everybody, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. But I have one question actually for our colleagues from the Eritrean government, Mr. Kibrom and his colleagues in the room today. So can you tell us a little bit more on how you plan what is the planned uptake of the lessons from this evaluation? And you also talk about the scaling up of the work, so it will be very interesting to understand what is your thinking about that. Yes. Adam,
thank you very much. Yeah. Well, I think as we all agree that the outcome of this ex-post evaluation tells us that we have a number of success stories from this project, and if we don't really replicate them, I don't see the point of taking this ex-post evaluation. So, given that we have these positive results from the ex-post evaluation, and given that the ZOBA Anseba is very keen and identified a number of priority areas where we can replicate with the arrangement that we have already with this project, we are ready to make sure that this is replicated with some improvement, as we have seen in the challenges that you also showed in terms of the maintenance issue and some of even the knowledge, although we had some advances that we do, but I think it's good that we also not only within the ZOBA, but across the other regions as well. So that's the kind of experience sharing that we need to make, because it's not only ZOBA Anseba that is vulnerable to the climate change. The same other regions are also facing the same challenge. So it's good that we take this, experience into other Zoba so that they can implement when the opportunity comes in terms of, availability of the adaptation fund or other resource. So it's for us this a good opportunity, and soon we will come to you with a proposal that clearly indicating that we want to replicate this in Zoba Ansara as well as in other Zoba. So we are ready. But my colleague from the Zoba office is here, Mr. Governor Skaltolda, who has been coordinating since the implementation and has been following up the, also the closure and, even, to keep this momentum going, and he has been very instrumental in that area. So he can also add what I have said. So I give him to the floor to him.
Okay, thank you already, Mr. Kubram tries to mention the advantage or the importance of this ex-post evaluation. Actually, as I said, representing Zoba, already we have implemented so many projects. I think follow the same vein, the way that we're doing for this climate adaptation project. Not only for climate adaptation, but also for other projects related with climate, like the AF-TERG project, this agricultural development, integrated agricultural development, and other projects. So this evaluation, I think, it supports a lot. And in fact, we try to incorporate all these activities and recommendations in other projects, even in the government. For instance, in the soil and water conservation, we are emphasizing on it. And we are trying to push on the farmers to follow the same procedure. Because these conservation projects, it was actually initiated more by this climate adaptation. And also, we're trying to improve this knowledge management as from your recommendations or from this, the lesson that you got from the paper. So instead focusing on the extension, then we are promoting the farmers to have their own farmers field school. So this, based on this, I think we are really supported by these findings. Thank you very much. That's what I want to read to Kubram's reports.
Thank you.
Vlad, I
Thank
have
you.
a question.
Yes, please.
This is Nashida. But I see there is a question on the chat from the Ministry of Cameroon, Environment of Cameroon.
So I was actually planning to ask that question, Nishida, if you don't mind, and then I'll give you the floor as well. So Mr. Hamambalu from the Ministry of Environment of Cameroon actually has a question whether the project has set up a water point maintenance committee supported by the chiefs of the various beneficiary villages. So Mr. Kibrom and colleagues, over to you.
Actually, I forgot to mention to respond for this one. Once we initiate the project, I think we are formulating a sort of association, water users association, and also they are responsible not only for maintenance, but also collecting the fee, the water they use it for their farms to maintain the sustainability of the project. So on the maintenance, already there are committees, we train them, especially on special of these solar-driven pump maintenance, elementary maintenance. If the maintenance is bigger, then they are not responsible because they are going to look for spare parts. But for the basic maintenance, I think we train them in collaboration with the projects, and not only with the project, but also with other initiatives like water resource department, because they are the responsible technicians who are responsible to train, not only for this project, but also at the grassroots level, even for water supply projects. So we are trying to relate this maintenance issue with other projects. Just to add on the FISA project, one that already Susan mentioned, that the broken pumps, we are on the way to maintain it. because the farmers, they are supposed to collect the fee on the money and to use it for, just to invest it for maintenance or expand the project. They were supposed to be like this. Unfortunately, even if we are organized them, some of them, they are promoted. They won't have their own farms, their own pumps. So now I think the minister, actually Minister of Land Water, is committed to give us or to replace them. But still, all the foundations already has been laid on the maintenance on this formulation of this water users association.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And thank you also for outlining one of the sustainability mechanisms, talking about like how farmers and villagers are really involved at local level. That is very interesting and also very important learning. But I wanted to go back to Nashida because she mentioned that she has a question. So Nashida, over to you.
Thank you, Vlad. First, I'm Nashida. I'm the deputy at UNDP. Firstly, thank you very much as parliamentary to your team and the government for making this happen. I just wanted to, it's a remark more than a question. I feel being here for 3 years, Eritrea does a lot of very innovative things and a lot of learning and that we can share with others. So today we went to see a farm by the Ministry of Agriculture, and this is one country that has really pioneered organic farming, but also relies very little on fertilizers from, imports very little fertilizers. It relies on its own organic fertilizer. So these are one of the many things that they do very well here that is very green and also, climate friendly. And so the invitation to learn from this country is there, and for other countries to come on study tours to see how these things are done. So I just want to advocate for that and put that invitation on the table on behalf of the people of Eritrea.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nashida, for this, and thank you for this invitation. Yes, please, Scott.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. My question, or I would like to hear from you, your reflection or your view in terms of like having seen the strengths and the weaknesses of this project as identified in the ex-post evaluation, and we have seen the successes and challenges. So having seen all these findings, I'd like to ask you, is this project replicable, scalable, and what are the specific items within that project that can be replicated, that can be scaled up elsewhere in similar agroecological zones? So I would like to hear from you. The second issue is related to the why benefits last, and on one of your transparency slide. You indicated that one of the factors is stakeholder ownership. So maybe the institutional arrangement is embedded within this stakeholder ownership, but I would like really this would come up explicitly as one of the factors, because the institutional arrangement in Eritrea, all the way from Zoba, sub-Zoba, and administrative area, and then at grassroots level, at village, they are organized in such a way that would support development at local area. For example, at village, there are committees for land, committees for water, committees for health, for road construction, because this framework provides a very favorable situation really to identify challenges and collaboratively to identify or design projects and to fully participate in the implementation and monitoring. So there is a very unique arrangement in Eritrea. I don't know how other parts but in Eritrea we feel that, you see, if, for example, information is really it really wants to be transmitted, then it goes very fast from HQ all the way to village. So that framework provides a very important. So that issue might have been embedded within stakeholder ownership, but I would like to hear what do you think about this institutional arrangement? And for the replication, I would like also to add one point. If you identify certain items that could be replicated, that could be scaled somewhere else in the similar agricultural zones, what are the mechanisms and what are the way forward in terms of taking these lessons and packaging them into a new project?
Thank you so much for this very interesting question, both on the elements for replication and scalability, but also on the unique stakeholder ownership structure. And I think they reflect very well also what Nashida said about what other countries can learn from Eritrea and from this particular project as well. So I want to give the floor to Susan, Rennie, and also I want to invite Esther, who is also part of the evaluation team, if she also wants to answer some of these questions, provide her reflections. But Susan, let me start with you first, and then I'll go to Esther.
I think I'll be brief. I just say I think we could have an entire webinar about potential for scalability here, because there is a lot. And I agree with you that the institutional arrangements are so closely related to, stakeholder ownership and also how the project is scaling on its own and replicating on its own. I don't say on its own because it's with the involvement of all of the stakeholders and really all levels of government. I think that if you have activities that are that reflect an alignment with policies and what are priorities, when you have this institutional arrangement, I think it's really going to be a very country specific. And I think one of the good things about this project is it does reflect conditions in villages and what was determined to be a priority. So we actually did a thematic evaluation on scalability and projects, and we found, as you suggest, that having strong stakeholder ownership and buy-in is really essential to scaling. But that also it's very context specific. So I don't think I've answered that question, but I do think it's kind of an entree into a broader discussion, and there is a lot to discuss there.
Yeah.
Maybe Esther or me?
Thank you, Susan. And Esther, over to you. And by the way, Esther was also part of the evaluation team. So over to you.
Thank you, Suzanne and Vlad, and the colleagues also in Eritrea. Nice to see you again. I think that on scalability, one element that was essential in addition to kind of the strong ownership and institutional landscape was this element of partnership that kind of percolated at multiple levels of the society, from the government to academia and also to the farmers themselves, and really kind of drawing on their value added and expertise, for example, in seedling and in also sharing knowledge and good practices among farmers themselves, that you would even see the knowledge on good practices being transferred to other communities and for the work to scale up. And so I think that this element also of focusing on even sharing the knowledge, as the colleagues also in Eritrea were mentioning, across Zobas can go a long ways, I think, in terms of promoting this scalability, So I think that maybe Rennie has something additional to say.
Not much more to add from what you've both already said, maybe just to reinforce that we didn't have to, I guess, time to go into all of the detail that's included in the report, but definitely in the factors of sustainability, we talk more about kind of multi-level partnerships, about different kind of, I guess, ownership from sort of a community all the way up to 3 different levels of government. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rainey, Esther, Susan as well. So I'm just looking at the time, and as you saw in the chat, we extended this webinar for 10 minutes. So I just want to have like one last closing question for all of our panelists. And we talked today about like knowledge sharing. We talk about local ownership, stakeholders, but very quickly, like what is, in your view, the thing that left the strongest impression from this evaluation? Something that is unique, something that you would always remember as part of this work. I don't know who wants to start first. Susan? Rainey, go ahead.
Oh, sure. I'll just maybe jump in with a quick one, because when you said that, I think the first thing that came to mind for me was just the more consistent water availability and being able to kind of have, I guess, grow during times when it was previously not possible to grow in one of the examples. So I think for me, it was really just the kind of continuation of water availability that was supported by the project. But I'll let the others go.
Thank you. Thank you, Rainey. Water availability, that was one very important point. Esther, maybe? You're muted, Esther.
I guess in addition to what Rennie said, well, maybe Suzanne, do you have any additional insights on that?
You know, I think I covered the big impression for me was our lunch, with the drought resistant, millet injera. I think the other thing that really has stayed with me is I think the AF-TERG in the toolkit, we talk about co-creation, and I think it's a nice sounding term, but I think in actuality, in reality, it varies widely. And I was struck by really how open and willing people were to share their impressions of the project and their experiences with us in all situations in villages when we went to Anseba Region. So I think that has stayed with me. Co-creation. I mean, we really relied on everyone from the government to our focus group participants to to UNDP, and I think even to the village that managed to get our car out of the mud where it was stuck. That was truly we could not have done it without the participation of everyone in Anseba Region. So I think that stayed with me.
Thank you so much, Susan. So co-creation, support, working together. I think this is like, and I also want to ask maybe like for some closing remarks, our colleagues in UNDP and from the government as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Vlad. Good afternoon, colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As I've said earlier, it's a pleasure to be part of this knowledge sharing of the ex-post evaluation of climate change adaptation in water and agriculture in Anseba Region, Eritrea. The evaluation marks an important milestone not only in reflecting the results achieved, but also in offering valuable lessons for sustaining climate adaptation over the long term. On this occasion, please allow me to express UNDP's sincere gratitude to all those who made the ex-post evaluation possible, enabling us to share this knowledge today. Key among them is the government of Eritrea for the leadership, the partnership, and continued commitment to climate resilience. Notably among them, as we all know, is the Ministry of Land, Water, and Environment, Ministry of Finance, although not here, but they have been very instrumental. Ministry of Agriculture, dissolvers, Anseba administration, and the project management team. We also gratefully acknowledge the Adaptation Fund Technical Evaluation Reference Group for commissioning this ex-post evaluation and thank the independent consulting firm that conducted it. The independence and the thoroughness of this assessment have provided credible insights, helping us to understand what it takes for adaptation efforts to last and keep benefiting communities. We want to thank the people of Anseba Region, the farmers, community leaders, and local authorities, Ahmed Malo and Hibero, whose dedication and resilience are central to these programs' lasting impact. Ladies and gentlemen, as colleagues have already said, the findings of this evaluation indicate the need for climate adaptation in Eritrea to grow from pilot projects to systematic replication and nationwide expansion. As climate challenges become more complex, partnerships like these, rooted in national leadership and guided by evidence, are vital for sharing future adaptation investment. On our part, UNDP is ready to continue working closely with the government of Eritrea to support a coordinated, integrated approach to replicate and scale up these pilot to other regions with similar vulnerabilities and ecological conditions. In that connection, I encourage all of us to view this ex-post evaluation not as an end in itself, but as a means to starting a more informed, strategic, and sustainable phase of climate adaptation in Eritrea. We were trying to interject here. One of our takeaway from this project is the return on investment. And I think that has, nobody can doubt, with the amount of resources we've got, we've used for these resources, and the return we have is enormous. For every dollar, I'm sure we've got a lot. On that note, I thank all those who participated, and thank you very much for sharing. And over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful closing remarks and reflections. And let me also join you in thanking everybody for joining us today for this extremely exciting webinar. I think we learned a lot. We learned about the importance of partnership. We learned about the importance of learning from each other. So I really hope that this project is going to continue being an example to other countries on very successful adaptation activities that can continue working over time. So thank you very much to everybody who was with us today. I wish you a great day and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.